Today's episode of The Lutheran Cartographer is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook at audibletrial.com/Lutheran Cartographer. The Lutheran Cartographer, Episode 11. Welcome to the Lutheran Cartographer. Today we are joined by Pastor Gordon Naumann. He is the pastor of Trinity Lutheran Church in Scarsdale, New York. Pastor Naumann, welcome to the show.
Hi, it's good to be here. Thank you for inviting me to have this conversation, really. Hopefully it's enlightening just a little bit, as well as just a bit of fun and getting to know, this corner of New York, really.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit more about yourself, your background, and how you came to be where you are in New York.
That's kind of a long story in itself, actually. As you could probably pick up from my accent, I'm from the UK. I was brought up there. My father was he would always say he's a missionary, was a missionary to the UK for a good 20 years or so, probably over that now. But graduated from the Lutheran seminary over there. We do have a Lutheran seminary in Cambridge. It's called Westfield House. So he graduated there and then continued on to his PhD in Scotland and the University of Glasgow. We had a Lutheran parish up there, so he was called there. And I do come in there somewhere. I was born in Scotland, so and then he took a parish in London, England, and I grew up there the majority of my life, and pretty much went straight to seminary then in Cambridge. And I've served one parish in Cardiff, Wales for a good 8 years, and then took a call over here with my connections through the English district of the Missouri Synod, and I've served in Scarsdale, New York for a couple of years or so.
We previously interviewed Pastor Oliphant, who's out in the Chicago area. He's also part of the English district, but I didn't ask him at the time, what is the English district?
So the English district is a non-geographic district. So we have basically parishes all over the states. Having said that, we do split up regionally as well. It's easier to have conferences. So pretty much down the East Coast, we do have a conference there every October. But we're considered just another district like all the rest. And we have our bishop and so many votes that go to synod and all the rest of it.
I see. So tell us a little bit more about the good parts of where you are in Scarsdale compared to some of the other places that you've been.
I haven't really lived anywhere else in the States, but I basically came right from the same kind of area, same kind of urban area just outside of the city, from Cardiff, Wales, where I just had my sort of small parish there. So there were lots of sort of historic things around the area that it was fun to just go to in walking distances. Where I am in Scarsdale, it's like a tranquil escape, really. Again, just 20 miles north of New York City. If you know Greenwich, Connecticut, Scarsdale's really New York's answer as the historic town. And it's one of the wealthiest in the state, actually, I kind of bald to say. Its public schools are continually ranked among the best in the country. Scarsdale's varied real estate offer homes which range from colonial and Victorian townhouses to country estates. So again, really quite luxurious. I certainly can't afford them with my salary, feeling quite a little out of place and intimidated a little. We live in the lovely parsonage provided by our congregation a stone's throw from the center. The cultural attractions and recreation areas are quite stunning. So I've heard, among them being the Greenberg Nature Center. It's actually 33 acre woods and gardens, in which I'm sure Winnie the Pooh would be right at home. The Weinberg Nature Center has a 10-acre oasis with Zen garden. There's a Native American village, a bird sanctuary, and Scarsdale's historic Tudor-style village, not to mention the main library, which has been undergoing construction and renovation for, I think, over a year now. Some huge project, which I'm sure will blow everyone's socks off once it's finished.
So you sum it up as a very quiet and affluent area then?
Yes, that's right. You couldn't really do door to door if that was your kind of thing. You'd be 10 minutes every home, really. Yeah, it's really quite lovely. And again, it's a stone's throw from the village where I live, and they do all sorts of wonderful things, kind of things I would like to take enjoyment in the farmers market that's there, and I can just sort of walk down there and have an afternoon walk and meet neighbors, which is nice. That's where you can really get to know the town people. There's what we have called the Bronx River Parkway. It's a lovely walk along the parkway there, but it's obviously quite a difference from the actual highway itself, and there's lots of it's along the river there, the Bronx River. So there's a few bridges you kind of cross over a few times. It's quite romantic, actually, and there's the trees that do separate you from the road, so it is kind of isolated there, it feels anyway.
Tell us a little bit more, help orient us a little more geographically. New York is a big state, and oftentimes some of those from outside of New York think of all of New York as New York City, which isn't the case. Help us orient us geographically. You mentioned we're about 20 miles from New York City?
That's right, 20 miles. So it's and we're right next to the train station as well, so it's a really easy hop on the train. I have a few members who come from Manhattan, because that's how much they love our church. It's actually a converted mansion, of all things. It was called historically the Crane Manor House. We actually were on Crane Road, and that says something. Built in 1852 by Charles Commer, using granite from the quarry near the Bronx River again. In 1873, Colonel Alexander Crane purchased the house and expanded into a 21-room mansion in the shape of a cross on an estate of 32 acres. The colonel lived in the house until his death in 1930. I'm kind of going through there. I've kind of researched a little bit here of this. Let's see. Maybe I'll go into that in a minute. But to answer your question about its surrounding area and the ease of it, I mean, if you want to do some cheaper things rather than because I mean Scarsdale is just is in my humble opinion ridiculously expensive. I'd go into the Bronx to see some things. So you've got the Bronx Zoo, which is lovely, and I believe for families it's free on a Wednesday as well. But just look that up and you can kind of find that. There's actually a beach in the Bronx as well. That's kind of fun. You want to do that at the right time of year, obviously. But that's quite huge. Quite a good facility there. Let's see. If you want to go a little farther north, there's the Bear Mountain. That's quite a neat range up there. But of course, yeah, I mean, it is New York. So if you are in Scarsdale, it's really easy. Hop on the train. You go see the Statue of Liberty or whatever if you want. The World Trade Center. I will say, and everyone should know this, if you're coming to New York and you want to see the Statue of Liberty, go as early as you can, first thing in the morning. If you get there like mid-morning or midday, you will be in line all day in order to see that. And yeah, for goodness sake, don't do it in the winter or you will get frostbite. But just standing in the line, really.
All right. So we'll come back later in the podcast and talk a little bit more about the things that you recommend going and doing and seeing. I want to talk about kind of the flip side of the question I just asked. I ask about the good things about Scarsdale and your area. What are some of the not so great things about where you are? You mentioned the cost. Is there anything else?
Oh, right. Yeah. I mean, the cost is a big part of it. But no, I mean, well, I mean, if we're not talking about the differences of who we are in terms of faith and that kind of thing, I mean, it's hugely sort of Jewish populated. So like in walking distance, there'll be a couple synagogues, but it's also heavily Christian populated as well. Just across the street, practically, there's an Episcopalian church, St. John the Less. Just up the road, there's a Congregational church. They have a huge parking lot up there. And there's your Roman Catholic churches up the road as well on Post Road. There's even an ELCA church, if you fancy that, a couple blocks down the road. So yeah, surprising there. Right. There is actually kind of a fun fact about Scarsdale, particularly in that there we have a nativity policy. Where is that?
A nativity policy.
Yeah, it was something that passed a little while ago, which said that a religious association can put up a nativity on public property around the seasonal period, i.e. Christmas time. So Trinity Lutheran Church, as well as two other churches in the area, literally put together this nativity scene. It's so large that three of the churches house this nativity, and then once a year we come together and we actually put it in a public space. It's kind of cool.
That
Um,
is really neat.
uh, and that's still not what you wanted to hear. That's not a negative thing, unless you want to talk about the distinction of church and state and how uh, people will come across this nativity scene then probably and say, "Well, I've done my bit. I don't even need to go to a lessons and carol service. I've seen the nativity and I've knelt by it, or I've stopped and I've prayed, and that's my religious bit for the year." I don't know.
I know it's sometimes a struggle to think of negative things because pastors often, really treasure the place where they're at. So that's a good thing. Is there anything that you think that perhaps if somebody's thinking of moving to the area, they should be cautious about or should know about?
We're probably one of the safest place you can go, to be honest. Uh,
Okay.
let's see, I've got an amenities paragraph here. It's an historic Tudor-inspired village, which is chock full of charming shops, cafes, and boutiques. The local farmers market again offers fresh produce. The child-friendly Greenberg Nature Center is a popular venue for four-season recreation, featuring wildlife exhibits, nature trails, meadows of native flowers. From June through August, visitors to its butterfly arbor can see species from across the United States. For sports and recreation, Scarsdale boasts several luxury day spas as well as golf courses, country clubs, tennis clubs, athletic fields, and leisure centers. If you want to get away with something a little less expensive, again, you might want to go a little further afield. But yeah, no, there's like a park right in the center of town as well, big enough to host concerts, and a lot of them are free. You get okay. Here's a negative thing. So just the junk mail, just advertising, event after event after event, and of everything that's happening, and now donate. You're a rich resident of Scarsdale. You can donate to this and this and this, and
I
it'll
see.
be no skin off your own back.
All right. So let's switch and talk a little bit about what it's like to raise a family in Scarsdale. Is it a good, you already mentioned the kind of family friendly atmosphere. Would you say it's a good place to raise a family, and what should people know about that aspect of it?
Correct, and it boasts of its schools, and you want to know the real irony is that we do in fact homeschool.
I think that's a wonderful choice.
Yeah, and we get those side comments, but I mean the wonderful benefit of homeschooling is the infinite amount of curriculum you get online, and actually the supportive communities that are out there. Yes, we homeschool, but we spend a lot of time going out into the neighborhood and the communities, the libraries, specifically Crestwood, because the Scarsdale one's down for a year under renovation. But what a way to actually reach out, kill a couple birds with one stone, and meet up with other. And they are usually Christian communities as well, these homeschooling communities, and just be able to mutually encourage each other that way as well. So there's a lot of social interaction with those kids, and with the use of the library staff as well. So they usually do presentations and workshops for us.
Excellent. Let's say that someone has a job offer to Manhattan or maybe closer to Scarsdale. What do you think they should know or consider or think about before they make a decision one way or the other?
I guess in terms of yeah, how easy it is to commute. Again, it's easy from Scarsdale. We have a parking lot ourselves at Trinity, so we actually rent out a whole row of parking spaces for people. Not quite sure from how far they're coming, whether they're all in Scarsdale. They just want to park a little closer to the station, so they don't have to walk all that way. Um, it's really it's just another world for me.
Hmm.
I'm not one of those people. I live and work locally. You
Hmm.
will have the majority of people probably live here and then work and travel to Manhattan to work. So this is kind of their luxury home.
I
Uh,
see.
and to get away from it really.
Okay. Let's go ahead and we've talked about the good and the bad and what it's like to raise a family there, but specifically what's it like being a Lutheran in Scarsdale?
For the cheat answer, if not optimistic one, it's really being a part of a Lutheran community. Hopefully, will feel the same everywhere you go.
Mm-hmm.
So even, I mean, in this affluent community, being able to just walk through the door of Trinity Lutheran Church and see your poor neighbor as well as your rich neighbor, the one who is equally welcomed because we all believe the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You will fit right in here at Trinity if you are familiar with the Lutheran service book. We have the same liturgy, and as much as people might harp on about whether this is boring or not, or whether it's not as contemporary as the church has progressed, shall we say, in the last couple decades, you will be familiar with it. If you've been brought up with the traditional liturgy of the Lutheran Church, you will be very familiar, and you will be and feel as welcome as you could ever be going into a church, shall I say, in the Midwest, where the grass is always greener. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more about what it might be like to be a Lutheran encountering kind of the rest of the culture. When people think of New York City, they of course think it's very progressive and very kind of has that whole secular milieu that you find there. Is that the case out in Scarsdale? And do you think the reputation of New York as this really progressive place is somewhat exaggerated, or is that something that people should be aware of?
Excellent question. I mean, New York is the birthplace of Friends, right? You go into you go into the park and you can find the Friends fountain. No, this is the beauty of Scarsdale. It's outside of the city. It is whatever you make it to be. It is the haven where you can go to. I should mention we have Concordia, Bronxville, just up the road as well. 5-minute drive. Bronxville is in between the Bronx and Scarsdale, so it's much closer than the Bronx. Which, I mean, respectively, Bronx isn't far either. But one of our Concordias is there, and as a pastor, I this is something I wasn't used to in the UK. We basically have congregations in a seminary in the UK, whereas over here you have hospitals, homes, colleges, schools, elementary schools. Sky's the limit. I mean, it blew me away when I came over here. So I had to take advantage of this outreach opportunity. I basically put my foot in the door right away, and I've started relationships with students, had them serve in my sanctuary, had them serve as Sunday school teachers. And they're still here to this day, and I continue to encourage them. The pre-sem students, particularly, who really need a mentor and just need that experience of field work. So there are those communities as well that are close to Scarsdale.
That is fantastic and wonderful that you've taken the opportunity to mentor and reach out there. Let's take a moment to thank our sponsor. If you're listening to this podcast on the go, you know the power of having audio in your ears, and Audible wants to put the great books that you would like to listen to there as well, with their free 30-day trial of their service that comes with a free audiobook. So if you're looking for a book to check out, to try it out, I would recommend Martin Luther's Table Talk, 7 Hours of the Wit and Wisdom of Martin Luther. But if you're not interested in Table Talk, they have a wide variety to choose from beyond Table Talk. So check it out at audibletrial.com/Lutheran Cartographer. Let's get back to the show. Let's talk next about some of the things that you'd recommend seeing and doing. I really look forward to this part of the podcast. You've already mentioned the forest, going into Manhattan and doing some of the things there. But what if someone's visiting the area, what would you recommend? You got to go see this.
So I mentioned the zoo. We have botanical gardens as well. That's like on the train line as you head sort of toward town. But there are all sorts of things there. And if you're just kind of sentimental or nostalgic, there are names that you Americans probably know that I wouldn't think twice about, but they're all around as well. Um, the Hudson River, that's it. Yeah, we're like not too far from that, and there's like a bridge you're supposed to stop at and just appreciate the view or something. Um, yeah, but for me, I really like long walks, like C.S. Lewis did in Cambridge. So for me, I mean, it sounds silly, but the Bronx River Parkway is just such a wonderful hiking opportunity to just go there and just forget about the world for a couple hours, and it just keeps going. And then I feel at home as well because, again, of all the Victorian architecture or faux Victorian uh, style.
As we start to look to closing out the podcast, I want to ask you about what thoughts you have in terms of if somebody's thinking about moving, making a move somewhere, what's kind of some general principles? Often pastors talk about finding a church, maybe start there, and maybe other thoughts that you might have for what Christians should think about when they're considering moving somewhere.
Well, you hit it on the head. I mean, church first and foremost. Um, a lot of people, obviously, when they're considering moving, are probably thinking about a job application or offer. I mean, someone's been offered a job somewhere, and so they think about whether or not they'd be happier there or where they're at the moment. Um, for me, I mean, funnily enough, I mean, I came across the pond, so for me, the church thing was obvious. I'm the pastor, so
kind of hard to miss the church part.
yeah. But the previous pastor before me did have a different style. But the good news was he was also different to the pastor before him. So I kind of brought back the confessional liturgical style of things and went back to just using the hymnal. So, but that's what I was used to, and presumably, the idea was, well, pastor, just do what you're comfortable with. And then I did what I was comfortable with, and found out that was what was more traditional, and the sort of going a little bit further back in the congregation way of things. And then, yeah, again, for me, is it good? Is it a safe place to bring up a family? Tick, absolutely. Is there enough entertaining things around? Sure. People tend to be a little introverted these days, don't they? It's like everything is accessible from inside the house because everything is kind of invading the house from outside, on your TV, on your tablet, on your computer, on your phone. I mean, goodness, you don't even need any of these sophisticated devices. You just need an iPhone today, and your life is completely invaded from outside. People don't realize this. So it's not even so much a matter of is your community safe? We have to protect ourselves from what we access ourselves, from the comfort of our own armchair.
Yeah, that's a topic that we don't really talk much about on this podcast, but since you mentioned it, let's elaborate a little more about that. As Christians, what do you think are good ways to start thinking about and dealing with the fact that we have all this media, as your word was invade, but just bombarding us all the time? What are good ways to think about that and to deal with it?
Absolutely. Well, the best way is, as a good Lutheran, really just go back to the Catechism and look at that first chief part again and again. We're really good at, and to put it in this way as well, in terms of looking at the Catechism and emphasizing to look at the Creed, the second and third article. We're always emphasizing what redemption is. We're always emphasizing, what the church is, and those kind of have their own sections and categories. But the first article, what is it to believe in a Father who has created the heavens and the earth? What is it to follow His words, to actually know what He has commanded us, and really to repeat that often to ourselves? And it's not just, okay, I learned the commandments once upon a time and I could probably rattle them off, but how much do we actually think about what God's will is for our life? So what we've been talking about is escapism, really, where we try to just kind of escape from the world, or be a part of it to such a degree where we're not dealing with ourselves, we're not dealing with our sin. Everything's go, 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 and we're able to swipe left or right or whatever it is, and just let something else take our attention away from what God wants in our lives. And part of that is realizing how important church is for us. And I'm talking about sanctification. I'm not just talking about knowing that you're saved, knowing Jesus is your Savior, but doing everything that you can to bring God's means of grace close to you, to be close to God. Let God the Father, the creator of the heavens and the earth, be close to you. Let him bring his Son to you in word and sacrament.
Absolutely. And as I think Luther put it, that he continued to be a student of the catechism throughout his life and never thought himself too good or too learned to continue to bask in all the articles and all the parts of the catechism.
Yeah.
All right. So as we start to close out the podcast, I want to make sure, Pastor Naumann, that I give you the opportunity to promote or plug anything that you would like, whether that's places people can follow you online, your church's website. What would you like to point our listeners towards?
I am the pastor of Trinity Lutheran Church in Scarsdale, New York, obviously. You can just put in as one word, trinityscarsdale.org, and you will get to our website. I put my weekly sermons on there as a video, so you can actually watch me preach my latest sermon every week on that website. We actually have a Facebook page as well, so we've got all sorts of photos on there. You might want to go to my Facebook page. Just look up my name, Gordon Naumann, to see various things I've been doing with the church as well. Speaking of things that we should be doing as not just individuals, people who just believe, but as a community, and not just locally. Our congregation is actually putting a group to go to the Higher Things Youth Conference in Grand Rapids this July. I believe that's July 21st to 24th. That's not. Yeah, I'm plugging someone else. That's not even my congregation. But what a wonderful thing to bring us together as Lutherans to see the bigger picture. That if you are a part of a small congregation, you don't feel like you're alone, and maybe you're gonna go off to college and find something better. Go to a Lutheran youth gathering. If you look up the website higherthings.org, it's that easy. Higherthings.org, and you'll find a wonderful place where you are encouraged by the Lutheran Church in the bigger picture, as well as your local congregation, and hopefully your pastor's encouraging you there as well. If you are in New York, my goodness, and you're looking for a conservative congregation, look no further than Scarsdale. We are an easy hop on the train. We're right next to the Scarsdale train station, like a 2-minute walk just up the road on Crane Road. trinityscarsdale.org.
Excellent. All right. So listeners, if you'd like to go to any of those resources, you can find links to all those great things that Pastor Naumann just mentioned at lutherancartographer.com/11. Pastor Naumann, what are your parting thoughts for our listeners?
God bless you all. And these days, these are the last days of trials and tribulations. Look no further than your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, who is continually offering his peace to you, his means of grace. Attend your church, make it a habit, not in some way that it's a great law for you and is striking your conscience, but that you love to go to church because that's how much God loves you. It just inspires you to go. You want to go again and again. Get addicted to church.
Absolutely. Thank you again for your time today, Pastor Naumann. God's peace.
All right. Peace to you, Mr. Weber.
Thanks for listening to the Lutheran Cartographer. For more about the things that we talked about today, check out the show notes page at lutherancartographer.com/11. I encourage you to go ahead and check out that Audible offer as well for that free audiobook. You can find that at audibletrial.com/lutherancartographer. Lastly, be sure that you don't miss an episode by subscribing on iTunes or Stitcher. And please leave a rating and a review on iTunes for me if you're enjoying the show, or if you're not. Those ratings and reviews are very helpful to me to make sure that more people see this podcast. Thanks again for listening. I'm Nicholas Weber. I'll talk to you soon.